Chapter 28. The gaze of Wu Dao's true body landed on the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world not far away. To begin with, he was somewhat against the actions of the celestial tribute world. Furthermore, the other party wanted to kill him right from the start. Wu Dao's true body did not say anything and soared into the air with Yu Luosha. In the blink of an eye, he arrived on the battlefield and punched the grotto heaven of a celestial tribute world king. Bang! Accompanied by a deafening bang, the world seemed to have gone silent. The entire battlefield paused for a moment. The next moment, the grotto heaven collapsed. Right in front of countless gazes, the body of the celestial tribute world king exploded into a blood mist and his body and spirit were destroyed. The vast heaven and earth suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Not a single sound could be heard. Many Rakshasa race beings widened their eyes in disbelief. A peerless king with a grotto heaven was destroyed by this mysterious purple-robed man with a silver mask bare-handed. Even with the protection of the grotto heaven, he could not withstand that punch. What sort of power was that? Although that scene was not as bloody and savage as the Yiksha king biting off half of a king's head, it had an even greater impact on everyone. Wu Dao's purgatory and essence martial grotto heaven were cultivated to greater mastery. Even if Wu Dao's true body did not release his martial domain in grotto heaven, his punch could reach the power of a quasi-emperor with just his physical body and bloodline. If he released Wu Dao's purgatory, he could even suppress and refine a quasi-emperor expert completely. Against that peerless king earlier on, Wu Dao's true body could crush him with a single finger. Yu Luosha was both surprised and delighted when she saw that. As though she thought of something, she said hurriedly, "The runic whips formed by the celestial tribute world are extremely powerful. You've got to be careful and ignore me. I'll be a burden to you." By the end of her sentence, her voice had already turned weak. Wu Dao's true body brought her with him. After all, it was inconvenient for him to move as he could not unleash his full strength. She was afraid that she would be a burden. Not necessarily, Wu Dao's original body replied indifferently. He didn't let go of Yu Luosha and walked towards the remaining 7 kings of the celestial tribute world. He brought Yu Luosha with him without any other thoughts. He just didn't want Yu Luosha to be in danger. No matter what, Yu Luosha was an old friend of his from Heaven Wasteland region, and now that they had reunited in this Sind land, Yu Luosha would definitely know a lot of things. The young man and the old man didn't make a move. If he tossed Yu Luosha aside, it would instead be easy for others to take advantage of. The remaining 7 kings of the celestial worship realm reacted immediately. They still had to control Yashafir king, so they couldn't just turn around and deal with Wu Dao's main body. After a quick discussion, 3 kings were sent to deal with Wu Dao's main body. Among the 3 kings of the sky worship world, 2 of them were peak kings with perfected grotto heavens. The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world did the same and summoned their celestial tokens. Circulating their blood chi and essence spirits, they released their full strength and whipped their rune whips towards Wu Dao's main body. With a calm gaze, Wu Dao's main body reached out unhurriedly towards the 3 rune whips. "You must have a death wish." The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world sneered with a vicious glint in their eyes. Their celestial tokens were specially refined numinous treasures that could mobilize the power of the seals of heaven and earth to suppress the living beings here. It wasn't something a physical body could deal with. Byak. Wu Dao's main body scooped out in midair and grabbed the 3 rune whips instantly, squeezing them tightly. A series of crackling sounds came from his palm. The originally blazing and resplendent runes seemed to be unable to withstand the power of his palm, and their light quickly dimmed. The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world were shocked. How was that possible? Before they could react, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the 3 rune whips and pulled them in his direction. The 3 kings felt an irresistible force pulling them towards Wu Dao's main body. The 3 of them staggered and could not stop at all. By the time the 3 kings wanted to let go of their celestial tokens and retreat, it was already too late. At the same time that Wu Dao's main body pulled the rune whips, he closed in on the 3 kings rapidly. Almost instantly both sides met. Wu Dao's main body held onto Yu Luosha with one hand and let go of the rune whips with the other. Suddenly he clenched his fists and punched 3 times in the direction of the 3 kings. Bang! 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 The 3 punches collided with the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world and let out 3 dull sounds. It was as though the 3 punches had collided with 3 gigantic ancient bells. The next moment, cracks appeared on the 3 grottos and they shattered. The bodies of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world were smashed into a bloody mist by Wu Dao's main body. In just 3 punches, the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world, including the 2 pinnacle kings, were all smashed into smithereens. Even the perfected grottos could not withstand one punch from Wu Dao's main body. The strange thing was that the primordial spirits of the three kings of the celestial tribute world did not die. They were still trying to escape from the battlefield in the bloody mist. However, Wu Dao's main body seemed to have been prepared. After the three punches, he waved his sleeves and kept the three primordial spirits in his sleeves. Such strong control. The Moon Tribe elder said softly with narrowed eyes. Even the perfected grottos and kings' bodies could not withstand the power of one punch. The relatively weak primordial spirits could not withstand such destructive power. However, there was only one possibility for the three primordial spirits to survive. This purple-robed man's control of power had reached the pinnacle of the thoroughly meticulous state. He could destroy the grotto's bodies without harming the primordial spirits. Wu Dao's main body did not leave the primordial spirits of the three kings of the celestial tribute world because he was merciful. He wanted to use the soul-searching technique to obtain more secrets about the celestial tribute world from the three kings of the celestial tribute world. In the blink of an eye, only 4 of the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world were left. The 4 kings of fear Wuxia, who were still trying to suppress their anger with their rune whips, turned pale when they saw just now. It turned out that the 2 people that Rakshasa girl had just summoned were the real ruthless ones, and they were the purple-robed man in front of him. Even the celestial order, which they relied on the most, could not harm this person. Who could stop this person? The 2 kings of the celestial tribute world showed a trace of fear. Wu Dao's main body walked toward them. An unimaginable pressure surged toward them, causing their hearts to tremble. The 2 kings could not take it anymore. Without thinking, they poured their primordial spirits into the celestial order, and the runes on it shone brightly. A ripple appeared in the surrounding void. This trace of spatial fluctuation couldn't escape the senses of the Wuxia king of fear. They want to escape. The Wuxia king of fear's bulging eyes flashed with savagery. He licked his lips and sneered. 2 of the remaining 4 kings of the celestial tribute world wanted to escape, but the remaining 2 kings could not suppress Wuxia at all. Chapter 28-29. Wu Dao's senses were sharp. He immediately sensed that the 2 kings of the skyward realm were trying to escape. His expression was calm. He did not even move to chase after them. Instead, he lightly stomped his foot in the air. The space around them began to collapse as huge cracks appeared, extending toward the 2 emperors and colliding with their heavenly abodes. Boom, boom. The 2 kings' abodes trembled and were on the verge of collapse. The space tunnel that the skyward realm order had just formed was also shattered by Wu Dao's true body. They could not escape immediately. His control over space had reached the peak. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body flicked his finger. 2 fingernail-sized red flames flew out and landed on the 2 kings' abodes in the blink of an eye. They only paused for a moment, but the 2 red flames burned 2 small holes in the 2 kings' abodes. The 2 kings were shocked. At the same time, they suddenly felt a burning pain in their bodies. Their internal organs, meridians, and every inch of their flesh felt like they were being burned by the flames. Ah! The 2 kings opened their mouths and let out a scream. As they screamed, bright red flames spewed out of their mouths and noses. In the blink of an eye, their flesh was burned open. These scarlet wounds appeared on the surface of their bodies in the shape of strange lotuses. Red lotus hellfire? The Moon Tribe elder frowned. He recognized the origin of this flame. Wu Dao's true body had cultivated to the greater success of the martial domain realm. The power of the red lotus hellfire had also increased greatly. Moreover, Wu Dao's true body had activated the red lotus hellfire with his nether chi. The flames were even more ferocious. Even the kings of the caves could not resist them. Umph. The Moon Tribe elder no longer wanted to stay out of the matter. He snorted and suddenly waved his sleeves. A sinister and cold aura instantly descended and enveloped the 2 kings of the skyward realm. This sinister and cold aura was extremely strong. In a few breaths, the red lotus hellfire on the 2 kings of the skyward realm was extinguished. This was the power of a quasi-emperor. After Wu Dao's main body arrived here, he noticed this old man. Although the Moon Tribe elder had removed the karmic fire of the red lotus from the 2 kings of the celestial realm, he hadn't been able to save them. The chilly fiendish chi and the red lotus hellfire, one hot and the other cold. The 2 kings of the celestial realm had just been burned by the karmic fire of the red lotus, and their body temperature had reached its peak. Now, they were suddenly enveloped by a wave of baleful aura. The 2 extremes of heat and cold collided in their bodies, and the 2 celestial realm kings couldn't withstand it and died on the spot. Seeing this, the Moon Tribe elder's expression turned ugly. On the other side, the Yuxia Fear King had also broken free from the rune whip. His ferocious nature erupted as he relied on the innate ability of the Void Yuxia lineage to chase after the remaining two kings of the celestial tribute world. The Moon Tribe elder stared at Wu Dao's main body. Just as he was about to attack, the young man beside him suddenly stopped him. This person has some tricks up his sleeve. I'll give him a chance. Then the young man looked at Wu Dao's main body and said slowly, "You killed the people of the celestial tribute world, which is tantamount to a great disaster. Only I can save your life." Wu Dao's main body's gaze was calm as he asked indifferently, "And where are you from?" "You don't need to know," the young man said proudly. The young man said proudly, "All you need to know is that all living beings in your medium-class world. Listen carefully, it's all living beings and races. In my eyes they're all ants. I'm letting you follow me because I'm giving you a chance to live. There's also a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. You must know how to be grateful." When the young man finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body said, "You don't understand the situation." After pausing for a while, Wu Dao's main body looked up. His eyes flashed as two balls of purple flames lit up in his deep eye sockets. He said slowly, "In this place I have the final say on who's an ant." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body had already charged toward the young man. "Young master, be careful." The Moon Tribe elder reacted extremely quickly. He let out a low shout and stood in front of the young man. Facing the menacing Wu Dao's main body, the Moon Tribe elder did not dare to be careless. He immediately held up the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven and activated his bloodline to the extreme. The Subthearchus Grotto Heaven already contained a trace of the world's power. It was definitely not something a Peak King's Grotto Heaven could withstand. Wu Dao's main body did not dodge. His blood surged and his entire body was like a huge furnace that was burning red. He raised his hand and punched out. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled. Although they were separated by the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven, the Moon Tribe elder was still shaken by Wu Dao's main body's punch. His blood surged and his bones creaked. So powerful. It was only now that the Moon Tribe elder realized how terrifying Wu Dao's main body was. His face was filled with shock. He frantically activated his primordial spirit and did not even care about burning his lifespan. The Subthearchus Grotto Heaven spewed out a huge amount of pure Yin energy. Kill! The old man from the Moon Tribe roared. This kind of Yin energy was extremely cold and extremely powerful. Even if only a trace of it entered the body, it would cause great harm to living beings. The Moon Tribe elder held up the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven and blocked Wu Dao's main body's fist. At the same time, the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven took out his own Grotto Heaven spiritual treasure. It was a cold wine flask surrounded by Yin energy. It seemed to be filled with wine. The moment it was taken out, the sound of water splashing could be heard from the wine flask. This wine flask contained countless amounts of Yin energy. After accumulating for a long time, it finally underwent a qualitative change and evolved into extreme Yin water. The Moon Tribe elder had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years and only managed to condense this small flask. Just a drop of it could threaten the life of a Subthearch expert. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath. He could not help but raise his eyebrows when he smelled the water vapor coming from the wine flask. The extreme Yin water in the wine flask was only infinitely close to the Yin spring, one of the 9 springs of hell. Its purity could not even be compared to the Yin spring of hell. The Moon Tribe elder seemed to have noticed the disdain in Wu Dao's main body's eyes. He was enraged and said coldly, "Ant, I'll let you have a taste of the power of this extreme Yin water today." He saw that Wu Dao's main body was holding Yu Luosha's hand with one hand and blocking the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven with the other. This attack was absolutely foolproof. Wu Dao's main body maintained his current posture. He did not let go of Yu Luosha's hand or withdraw his fist. Instead he took a deep breath. Just as the Moon Tribe elder made his move, Wu Dao's main body suddenly opened his mouth. Whoosh! A ball of dark green flame gushed out from the depths of his throat. This ball of flame was only as thick as a baby's arm when it gushed out from Wu Dao's main body's mouth. However, when it entered the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven, it seemed to be stimulated by something and the fire surged. The extreme Yin water in the wine flask had just poured out when it met the dark green flame. This flame instantly transformed into a giant fire dragon and entered the wine flask along with the extreme Yin water. Then, under the Moon Tribe elder's horrified gaze, the wine flask suddenly exploded. The netherworld ghost flame was born in the 9 underworlds abyss, a place of extreme Yin. The Yin energy of the Moon Tribe and the extreme Yin water were like fuel for the flame, causing the netherworld ghost flame's power to surge. Chapter 28:30. This change was completely out of the Moon Tribe Elder's expectations. His physique was special and he was a boundary emperor. Coupled with the extreme Een grotto heaven and the extreme Een water in his wine pot, not many boundary emperors of the same level would dare to fight him head-on. However, he had never thought that the power he relied on the most would bring trouble to himself. The wine pot exploded and countless fragments flew everywhere. The Moon Tribe Elder was the first to bear the brunt. He had no time to dodge it all. In an instant, countless fragments of the netherworld ghost flame entered his body. And the old man of the Moon Tribe groaned in pain. His face was pained. His body was riddled with holes, revealing countless bloody holes. Each bloody hole was burning with the netherworld ghost flame. What was more terrifying was that these flames were burning his flesh. His body was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The white bones inside were faintly visible. Even his boundary emperor grotto heaven had been burned dry. The netherworld ghost flame spewed out from the cracks. From afar it looked like a single green eye. The Moon Tribe Elder could not suppress the netherworld ghost flame at all. The fire burned even more fiercely. He could not hold on for long. "Young master, leave quickly." The old man of the Moon Tribe used the last of his strength to roar in the netherworld ghost flame. On the other side, the young man was a little scared when he saw this scene. Ever since he was young, he had lived in a comfortable environment and was surrounded by many people. When had he ever encountered a situation like this? When had he ever encountered such danger? Moreover, the process of the two sides fighting was too fast. In just one clash, the purple-robed man spat out a flame and the Moon Tribe Elder was defeated. He did not have much time to react at all. Hearing the Moon Tribe Elder's warning, the young man finally reacted. In a panic, he slapped his storage bag and took out a teleportation talisman. At this moment, the purple-robed man and Rakshasa passed through the raging fire. They were unharmed and walked toward him. They seemed to be moving slowly, but in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of him. A powerful and majestic intent enveloped him. In the next moment, the young man felt the pressure on him increase. His chest tightened and his mind trembled. The young man could not move. The teleportation talisman was in his hand, but he could not tear it apart. "Why you can't kill me?" The young man's face was pale and his voice trembled as he said, My identity is something you can only look up to. You can't afford to offend me." "Look up?" Wu Dao's main body had an indifferent expression. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the top of the young man's head. Then he pressed down forcefully. Plop. The young man couldn't take it anymore. He knelt on the ground and his knees shattered. The young man let out a blood-curdling scream. A fine layer of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his body trembled slightly. The young man raised his head and glared at Wu Dao's main body. His eyes were filled with resentment as he said coldly, "Fine, this king will lay his cards on the table with you. Listen well, I am from the heavenly court. If you dare to harm my life, you will suffer the wrath of the heavenly court. You, your clansmen, and everyone related to you will die without a grave." Heavenly court? Wu Dao narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he had a premonition that he might be close to the deepest secrets of the middle world. Given the young man's threat, there was no way Wu Dao's main body would let him live. With a cold expression, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the young man's head and trapped his essence spirit in his palm instantly. At the same time, he executed a soul-searching secret skill. Right then, a sudden change happened. Suddenly, a scorching power burst forth from the young man's essence spirit and surged towards the palm of Wu Dao's main body. In fact, it even wanted to surge into his body through his palm. Wu Dao's main body felt a sharp pain in his palm. Wu Dao's main body frowned. Given his current cultivation realm, a power that could cause his body to feel pain had to be at least at the level of a quasi-emperor or even higher. Wu Dao's main body did not dare to be careless and hurriedly channeled his blood qi. A gigantic furnace appeared around him. Both parties were in a stalemate for a moment before the scorching power dissipated gradually. Wu Dao's main body opened his palm to take a look. There was a strange rune imprinted on his palm that was identical to the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra and Hell of the Nine Springs. It was the word flame. Wu Dao's main body tried to circulate his blood qi or form the Wu Dao purgatory to erase the imprint on his palm, but to no avail. That method should have been left behind by the expert behind the young man. Wu Dao's main body was expressionless and put the matter aside for the time being. The essence spirit of the young man had long turned into ashes and died after being burned by the Wu Dao furnace just now. "What a pity," Wu Dao's main body lamented internally. That young man definitely knew many secrets. Unfortunately, he did not succeed in soul-searching. Wu Dao's main body took out the essence spirits of the 3 celestial world cultivators that he had just captured and executed a soul-searching technique on them. However, as soon as the soul-searching technique was released, the 3 essence spirits seemed to have been stimulated and exploded. Their essence spirits were destroyed. Wu Dao's main body was not surprised by this result. There must be some kind of restriction imprint on the 3 celestial world cultivators' bodies to prevent others from soul-searching and finding out the secrets of the celestial world. Even if he did not use the soul-searching technique, he would not be able to find anything useful from their mouths. Not far away, the Moon Tribe elder had been burned until only a skeleton was left. There was no flesh on his body at all. Even his essence spirit had been burned to ashes. On the other side, the Yashafir king who had just escaped had already killed the remaining 2 kings of the celestial worship world, tearing them into pieces. It was a tragic sight. At this point in the battle, more than a dozen celestial world cultivators, including 2 from the heavenly court, had died. Many Rakshasas looked at the bloody battlefield with their mouths agape and their faces full of shock. The 2 people that Yu Luosha had summoned with her sacrifice were so terrifying. One of them seemed to be an old acquaintance of Yu Luosha's. He had brought her with him. With just one hand he had swept through everything. No one could defeat him. Even the boundary emperor who had come from the sky was burned to death by his flames. Wu Dao's main body waved his sleeves and gathered the grotto heaven fragments that he had just destroyed in front of him. At the same time he opened his mouth and took in a deep breath. The grotto heaven fragments were swallowed by Wu Dao's main body like food. The Rakshas's kings were dumbfounded. He could do that? One had to know that each grotto heaven fragment contained the will and Tao of a king. If one wanted to refine the Tao of a grotto heaven fragment, they would have to digest and absorb it bit by bit. If they devoured the grotto heaven fragments like Wu Dao's main body, their physical body would have exploded long ago. Wu Dao's main body's expression was normal. His physical body was the origin martial grotto heaven. The grotto heaven fragments of a dozen kings were nothing to the origin martial grotto heaven. Of course, that was not all he gained from this battle. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and collected the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators, the boundary emperor and the young man. There were many treasures in the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators. However, Wu Dao's main body did not care about them. There were a few rare treasures in the storage bags of the boundary emperor and the young man, however. Thank you for the 10,000 book coins tip. Speaking of which, it's almost the new year. Can I make a small update openly? End of chapter. Chapter 28:31. Master, it's all settled. The Yekshafir king returned to the side of Wu Dao's true body and said excitedly. Although he was heavily injured in this battle, he was able to kill to his heart's content and was extremely happy. Master. Right then Yu Luosha called out softly. Wu Dao's true body let go of her and waved it off. You've already regained your freedom in the lower realm. There's no need to address me as such. Yu Luosha's eyes dimmed and she lowered her head slightly. Thereafter, she mustered her courage and said, I don't know how to address you either. It's just that you're more used to it, master. Although my cultivation realm is slightly low, I can still do some miscellaneous tasks. Back when they first met in Pingyang town, although she was defeated by Wu Dao's true body, their cultivation realms were not far apart. Although she chose to submit to Wu Dao's true body back then, it was only because of the situation that she was unwilling and indignant. But now Wu Dao's true body was already standing at a height that she could only look up to. The difference between the two of them was too great. Even if she took the initiative to submit, this person before her might not agree. Thankfully, Wu Dao's true body did not say anything. That caused her to feel some anticipation. Naturally, Wu Dao's true body did not know about Yu Luosha's complicated feelings. He did not take it to heart, it was just a form of address and he would let her be. Of course, in his opinion, Yu Luosha's cultivation realm was not low. It was already rare for her to be able to cultivate to this point after ascending. She should be around the same level as Yen Beichen, Demoness Ji and the others. Wu Dao's true body's gaze shifted and landed on the stone woman beside the altar. His eyes lit up as he murmured softly, 9 Netherworld Emperor? That stone statue was identical to the white-robed woman he encountered when he was undergoing the 10th level true martial heavenly tribulation. He found out from Demoness Ji that the white-robed woman he saw during the tribulation transcendence was the legendary 9 Netherworld Emperor. Why is the stone statue of the 9 Netherworld Emperor here? Wu Dao's true body asked. Yu Luosha explained, Goddess Pure Maiden is the ancestor of the Rakshasa race. Our clansmen pray for her every day. Wu Dao's main body suddenly thought of something and asked, Nine Abyss Emperor is a Rakshasa? Of course. Yu Luocha nodded and said, Legend has it that Goddess Su Nu led her clansmen out of the abyss of the ghost realm and came to the middle world. Under the leadership of Goddess Su Nu, the Rakshasa race rose to power and created the Nine Nether realm. In the end they created a glorious era of the Nine Nether. After pausing for a while, Yu Luocha sighed softly and said, Unfortunately, Empress Su Nu defied the heavens and attacked the Tao. In the end she was defeated and died. The Nine Nether world was destroyed, and her clansmen became sinful spirits for generations to come. They were imprisoned here, and this is the Nine Nether sinful grounds. In the mind of Wu Dao's main body, countless pieces of information and clues quickly converged, gradually clearing the fog. The question that had been lingering in his heart finally had an answer at this moment. When he first heard about the Nine Underworlds Abyss when he first entered the ghost realm, he had a thought. He wondered if the Nine Underworlds Abyss had anything to do with the Nine Underworlds Emperor. When he saw the Nine Underworlds Emperor during his tribulation, he subconsciously thought that he was a human. But in reality, there was almost no difference in appearance between a Rakshasa woman and a human woman. Now, according to the legend that Yu Luocha mentioned, he was almost certain that the Nine Underworlds Emperor was born in the ghost realm. But he didn't know how the Nine Underworlds Emperor was related to the ghost realm's Brahma ghost mother. According to the Yaksha king, the Brahma ghost mother was the one who created the Yaksha and Rakshasa races. Then, the Nine Underworlds Emperor should be under the Brahma ghost mother. Goddess Su Nu? At this moment, the Yaksha king muttered softly as if he had thought of something. Wu Dao's main body asked, You've heard of her? The Yaksha king pondered and said, In the history of the ghost realm, there was indeed a plain Rakshasa. She was the leader of the Rakshasa ghost realm's 10 Rakshasa maidens. Wu Dao's main body fell into deep thought. The 10 Rakshasa maidens were the 10 imperial emperors who ruled the Rakshasa ghost realm. He had met one of them in the Nine Underworlds Abyss. The plain Rakshasa was known as the leader of the 10 Rakshasa maidens. Needless to say, she was strong. However, Wu Dao's main body guessed that the plain Rakshasa in the ghost realm hadn't become a great emperor. The Skywolf once said that there was only one great emperor in an era. The ancient books passed down in the middle world did indeed record that a great emperor could create a prosperous era. There was no record of 2 great emperors existing at the same time. Wu Dao's main body didn't know the reason, but he believed that it was true. However, when he entered hell, he passed through the netherworld, fell into the cycle of reincarnation, and entered the ghost realm. There he saw countless clues left behind by ancient eras. These clues showed that there was more than one great emperor in some of the ancient eras. In fact, the two didn't conflict. For example, during the Avicii era, other than the Avicii great emperor, the Lord of Hell was most likely a great emperor. According to the Yaksha king, the Lord of Hell at the same time, the Brahma ghost mother, was also a great emperor. And these great emperors were in independent realms and didn't interfere with each other. In other words, there could only be one great emperor in a middle world. And as an independent realm, Hell could only give birth to one great emperor. It was the same for the ghost realm and Hell. In some ancient eras there might be several great emperors existing at the same time, but in reality, they didn't become great emperors in the same realm. For a middle world there was only one great emperor in an era. However, outside of the middle world, like the Hell world, the ghost world, and the underworld, there were other great emperors. In the ghost realm, the Brahma ghost mother had already entered. If the Su Nu Rakshasa wanted to become a great emperor, she could only leave and go to a middle world. This was the origin of the legend that Yu Rakshasa spoke of. Of course, there were other doubts. The Nine Abyss great emperor was already the lord of a middle world. What Tao did she want to go against? If the Brahma ghost mother was included, there were 2 great emperors in the ghost realm. When the Nine Abyss great emperor went against the heavens, what role did the Brahma ghost mother play? If the 2 great emperors joined forces, who in the upper world could defeat them? What did this have to do with the turmoil that swept through the 3,000 realms? Was the Devil Lord involved? The Brahma ghost mother also had many secrets. The lifespan of a great emperor wasn't endless. There was a limit. Even the longevity great emperor only had a lifespan of 20 million. If the Brahma ghost mother was a great emperor, then how many years had she lived? Just from the Nine Abyss era until now, who knew how many billions of years had passed? Defying the heavens, honoring the heavens, the heavenly court, Wu Dao's true body muttered to himself, seeming to have understood something. May I ask where the 2 of you came from? How did you come to this Nine Abyss sinful land? A Rakshasa king bowed in the direction of Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king and couldn't help but ask. Although it was you Rakshasa who used the sacrificial mystic technique first, Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king had arrived before her sacrificial mystic technique was completed. There must be another reason. The Ghost Realm. Yaksha king grinned at him and said, Lord Ghost Mother personally sent the great emperor here with me. The Ghost Realm. When the Rakshasa heard that, their hearts skipped a beat. They looked at Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king excitedly. Their expressions were so respectful that they almost knelt down to worship them. Chapter 28-32. Many Rakshasas knew that their ancestor, the Sunu Rakshasa, had once led countless clansmen out of the legendary abyss of the Ghost Realm. However, they had been imprisoned here from the moment they were born and had never been to the Ghost Realm. They did not even know if the Ghost Realm really existed. But now, 2 envoys of the Ghost Realm had descended before them. The 2 envoys of the Ghost Realm came from the same place as the Sunu Rakshasa. Furthermore, both of them were so powerful. Did this mean that they had a chance to escape from this place? Many Rakshasas looked at Wu Dao's true body and the Yaksha Fear King. Apart from their respectful expressions, there was also a hint of anticipation in their eyes. How much do you know about the heavenly courts? Wu Dao's true body looked at the Rakshasa kings not far away and asked in a deep voice. All the Rakshasa kings shook their heads with a confused look on their faces. What about the celestial tribute world? Wu Dao's true body asked again. A Rakshasa king's expression changed as he stood out and said, Every once in a while, someone from the celestial tribute world will come to our race to choose tributes. Tributes? Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have thought of something as he compared it to the memories from Qinglian's true body. Yu Luocha explained, It's to pick out a portion of the true spirit realm experts from their clansmen as tributes and throw them into a purgatory battlefield. They'll be constantly attacked by other living beings and races. Wu Dao's true body was silent. If he was not wrong, the purgatory battlefield that Yu Luocha mentioned was the fiend battlefield of the celestial tribute world. The true spirits in the fiend battlefield were all tributes, selected from the 10 sinful lands by the celestial tribute world. The word tribute was filled with the condescending coldness and contempt of the celestial tribute world towards the living beings of the 10 sinful lands. It was a supreme authority that controlled life and death. Yu Luocha said in a low voice, The people of the celestial tribute world said that this is a punishment for us and also a warning. Did anyone return alive? Wu Dao's true body asked. The Rakshasa kings shook their heads with gloomy expressions. A king said miserably, For countless years our clansmen have multiplied and passed down their legacies, but no one has been able to escape this fate. There were some who tried to fight back, but in the end they failed miserably, implicating even more of their clansmen and causing them to die. Although we were lucky enough not to become tributes and cultivate to the Grotto Heaven realm, one day, we will also be taken away by the people of the celestial tribute world. It won't be long before we all die outside. Wu Dao's main body remained silent. He suddenly recalled what Qinglian's true body had seen in the treasure pagoda in the celestial tribute realm. Those were some well-preserved Dao fruits and there were Rakshasas among them. Above the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda, Qinglian's true body was also unable to set foot there. There might be many well-preserved Rakshasa grotto heavens on it. Apart from dying in battle in the evil demon battlefield, these Rakshasas would probably become Dao fruits and grotto heavens placed in the treasure pagoda for the powerhouses of the 3,000 worlds to choose from. All the living beings of the Rakshasas and the 10 sinful grounds in this world were merely tributes to the celestial tribute world. Because he was born in Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao's main body did not have a good impression of the Rakshasa race. However, he was even more disgusted by the evil actions of the celestial tribute world. They reared billions of living beings in the 10 sinful grounds for them to kill wantonly. Even their bloodline descendants were not spared and they were reduced to tributes for generations. Those actions were truly inhumane and went against the heavenly Tao. In fact, there were many humans in the 10 sinful grounds. If the Rakshasas and Yakshas were innately cruel, what wrong had the bloodline descendants of the human race done? Furthermore, there were still many doubts as to what the 9 Netherworld Emperor did in the past. The so-called heinous crimes were merely excuses for the celestial tribute world. Wu Dao's main body buried those doubts in his heart for the time being and looked up at the firmaments with 2 balls of purple flames burning in his eyes. Right now, the most important thing for him was to leave this place as soon as possible. More than 10 kings of the celestial tribute world died, including the 2 from the heavenly courts. This matter could not be hidden for long. Of course, the thing that made Wu Dao's main body uneasy was the yen word on his palm that could not be removed. "Sir, are you thinking of leaving?" a Rakshasa king asked cautiously, as though he could tell the intentions of Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body nodded gently and asked instead, "What can I do?" Although the Rakshasa race beings had never left, they had been imprisoned here for generations after all and knew this world the best. The Rakshasa king said, "This world is filled with powerful restrictions. If anyone leaves without permission, they will definitely trigger a counterattack. All these years, there have been clansmen who tried to leave by force but were killed mercilessly by the power of the restrictions. We speculate that the power of an emperor might be able to break through the restrictions of this world." "Emperor realm?" Wu Dao's main body murmured softly. The Rakshasa king laughed bitterly and said, "Because of the existence of such restrictions, our cultivation will be suppressed and we can't break through to the emperor realm at all. We can only be trapped here." Wu Dao's main body cultivated the Wu Dao purgatory to greater mastery. Once released, it could suppress all boundary emperors. However, boundary emperors were not true emperors after all. Although there was only a difference of one word, the difference in power between the two was like heaven and earth. If he only relied on the Wu Dao purgatory and the true Wu Dao body, even if he pushed his bloodline to the limit, he would not be able to reach the emperor realm. However, if he used the prison-suppressing cauldron and attacked with his full strength, it was very likely that he would be able to reach the emperor realm. At that thought, Wu Dao's main body did not delay and directly soared into the sky. In a flash he arrived at the end of the sky. As far as his eyes could see, he could even clearly see the dense restriction runes in the sky. Under these restriction runes, Wu Dao's main body felt a huge pressure. The expert who set up these restriction runes is probably not an ordinary emperor lord. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. However, no matter what, he had to give it a try. Whoosh! The blood chi of Wu Dao's main body rose and instantly pushed his bloodline to the limit. His entire body became a little blurry and a huge furnace with blazing flames appeared in midair. Under the support of the 6 flames, the furnace was burned red and hung in the sky like a scorching sun. Not only did the furnace expand, but it was also about to break through the world. In the next moment, a purgatory appeared around the huge furnace. Flames soared into the sky and burned the sky continuously, trying to refine the restriction runes on it. Countless Rakshasa race members looked up at this scene with shocked expressions. This was the true burning of the heavens. However, under the burning of countless flames, the restriction runes in the sky did not show any signs of dissipating. Instead, they condensed to brilliance and began to counterattack. Boom, boom, boom. The two types of power began to collide continuously, letting out earth-shattering sounds. Both sides had only exchanged blows for a moment, but the purgatory in midair and the heaven and earth furnace were at a disadvantage. The flames around the furnace even showed signs of extinguishing. At this moment, an ancient bronze square cauldron appeared and the world trembled. End of chapter. Chapter 28:33. The bronze square cauldron seemed to have come from the end of the river of time. The cauldron was covered with the marks of time, as if it had been through countless wars and vicissitudes. The cauldron exuded an unparalleled aura. As soon as it descended, it shook the heavens and the earth. The entire world seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and started to shake slightly. It was the Emperor's divine weapon, the prison-suppressing cauldron. The carvings on the 4 sides of the cauldron suddenly lit up and released balls of dazzling light. The carvings on the cauldron seemed to have come alive. A dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a turtle's roar, and a tiger's roar sounded almost at the same time, echoing between the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, the figures of the 4 sacred spirits flew out of the cauldron and surrounded it. They carried the prison-suppressing cauldron and slammed it into the sky above them. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the earth shook and the clouds changed color. The runes in the sky dimmed in an instant. But soon an even more dazzling light burst out and a fierce counterattack was launched. The runes in the sky that was burning red were shining, releasing a vast amount of restrictive energy. It was as turbulent as the sea and poured down like the Milky Way, illuminating the void. Sizzle. In Wu Dao's purgatory, the flames of the heaven and earth cauldron could not withstand it and gradually extinguished. There was a strange sound and smoke rose. Wu Dao's original body also appeared again. The runes in the sky shone brightly and the restrictive energy gathered together to form a huge beam of light. It fell from the sky and charged toward Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body's heaven-defying action had finally triggered a fierce counterattack from the heavens and the earth. The group of Rakshasa looked up at the sky and was shocked to see this. Every rune at the end of the sky seemed to have turned into a star. Tens of thousands of rays of starlight fell from the sky. It was a scene of the end of the world. Oh no! The messenger of the world of spirits has angered the heavens. I don't know what kind of disaster it will bring. We won't be wiped out, right? In the history of the ninth hell-sinned land, there were many powerful Rakshasa people who tried to challenge the heavens and break out of the cage. However, they all failed miserably. Not only that, but this kind of action would also bring about a greater punishment, causing many Rakshasa people to suffer. The Rakshasas below were in a mess, trying to hide in all directions. However, the sky covered the entire area. Every living being under the sky had countless places to hide. Even the Yaksha Dread King felt uneasy. The power that erupted from the sky had far exceeded what he could endure. It was enough to destroy him 10,000 times over. Rumble. Before the runic light beam descended, Wu Dao grabbed the prison-suppressing cauldron and raised it high above his head, using it as a shield. Compared to the huge beam of light descending from the sky, Wu Dao's body was as small as a speck of dust. He quickly fell and heavily crashed onto the ground. Boom. The ground trembled and a huge crater was smashed open. Countless huge cracks spread in all directions. Wu Dao's true body lay inside, motionless and covered in wounds. The hell-suppressing cauldron was not far away, and the four saint spirits dimmed as they fell into a deep slumber. This person should be dead? Many Rakshasas turned pale as a thought flashed through their minds. Cough, cough. At this moment, Wu Dao's main body struggled to stand up. He coughed twice and spat out a mouthful of blood. He's not dead. The Rakshasas widened their eyes in disbelief. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath and tried his best to circulate the surging blood in his body to heal his injuries. In fact, if the prison-suppressing cauldron had not blocked most of the damage from the runic light beam, his body and soul would have been destroyed. The Rakshas's guess was right. In order to break the seal and break this heaven and earth cage, one's strength had to be at the Emperor Realm. Moreover, the strength of an ordinary Emperor Realm cultivator would not be able to break it. Wu Dao's main body activated his bloodline to the maximum and released Wu Dao's purgatory. Then he used the prison-suppressing cauldron to release the strength of an ordinary Emperor Realm cultivator. Even so, it was still not enough to shake the sky. The runes in the sky were still shining. The power of the seal continued to accumulate. It was obvious that it was preparing for a second attack. Wu Dao's main body was already injured. Even with the prison-suppressing cauldron, he could not hold on for long. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the blood in his body was surging. He could not even suppress it. His chest felt like it was about to explode. Before he could react, he felt a tearing sensation in his chest. It was extremely painful. Then, a dark ancient mirror broke out of his chest. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Wu Dao's main body stared at the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. His pupils constricted and he looked shocked. It was not that he did not think of using the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. However, he gave up on this idea as soon as it appeared. Firstly, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror needed to devour a large amount of blood essence. It was very harmful to him. Once it failed, he would not be able to fight back. Secondly, with his current cultivation, even if he sacrificed a large amount of blood essence to activate the Netherworld Treasure Mirror, the power that erupted would not be able to fight against the runic seal in the sky. Of course, there was also the most important point that he was most afraid of. The origin of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was unknown. It was extremely evil and bloodthirsty. If he fed it his own blood essence, he was worried that he would end up raising a tiger and even suffer a backlash. Now, the reason why he was so shocked was that the appearance of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was not under his control. Wu Dao's main body stared at the mirror surface of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. A blood-red light appeared in the center. It was not his blood. If the Netherworld Treasure Mirror devoured his blood essence, he and the Netherworld Treasure Mirror would establish a connection and control this divine weapon. At this moment, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was completely out of his control. This meant that the blood in the ancient mirror did not come from his body. Someone was controlling the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. In other words, the owner of the blood was controlling it. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror turned around and suddenly pointed at Wu Dao's main body. The blood-red light on the mirror continued to elongate, crossing the center of the mirror. It was like a blood-red pupil, firmly locking onto the martial Dao body. The Netherworld Pupil. In an instant, Wu Dao's main body felt a chill down his spine. A strong sense of danger descended. He almost could not bear it and subconsciously wanted to release Wu Dao's purgatory and Yuanwu Grotto heaven at the same time. At this moment he finally experienced the horror that Hell Master Kong Quan experienced when he died under the Netherworld pupil. Back then, Hell Master Kong Quan did not even last a breath under the gaze of the Netherworld pupil. He turned into a pool of blood and died. Yet now, this wisp of blood within the Netherworld treasure mirror was obviously much more formidable than his bloodline. Even without the support of the Netherworld treasure mirror, Wu Dao's main body already felt an irresistible pressure from the blood in the mirror. How could this be? The Netherworld treasure mirror had always been in his Yuanwu grotto heaven. How could there be someone else's bloodline, whose bloodline would have such terrifying power and will? End of chapter. Chapter 28-34. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's true body as he vaguely thought of something. However, before he could react, the runes that shone in the firmaments had already converged into a resplendent seal ocean. Torrential waves surged like a tsunami, crashing down towards Wu Dao's true body. Rumble. Boom. The entire world could not bear the burden and trembled continuously while the ground quaked. Countless mountains and ancient trees on the ground collapsed and were drowned by the torrential waves. Although the rune wave was aimed at Wu Dao's true body, the countless Rakshasa beneath were not spared as well. Many Rakshasas could only watch this scene with their eyes wide open. They had nowhere to run and their faces were filled with despair. Right then, the Netherworld mirror in front of Wu Dao's true body suddenly turned and aimed at the incoming rune wave. The Netherworld treasure mirror floated in midair like a gloomy and terrifying eye, and the pupil of the eye was suffused with a strange bloody light. All of a sudden, a streak of blood light burst forth from the single eye and shot towards the incoming rune wave. Compared to the rune wave that covered the skies, the streak of blood light seemed extremely tiny. However, it was like a blood-colored saber that tore the rune wave into two. Countless runes collapsed and turned into nothingness before they could descend. The blood light that burst forth from the Netherworld mirror was way too terrifying. Even after tearing through the rune wave, its power was not depleted as it slashed towards the boundless firmaments. Sizzle. It was as though a blood-colored saber had sliced through a stone slab and let out an ear-piercing sound. The blood light extended from above until the end of the firmaments, leaving behind a ghastly blood scar in the skies. Wherever the blood light passed, countless runes were destroyed and their light dimmed. As time passed by, the blood light on the Netherworld mirror gradually faded before vanishing. The power of the blood light was depleted as well. This attack exhausted the power of the bloodline in the Netherworld mirror. Losing its support, the Netherworld mirror fell to the ground once more and turned into an ancient, gray mirror. Wu Dao's true body waved his sleeves and retracted the Netherworld mirror. In just a short while he had already understood many things. If his guess was correct, the bloodline in the Netherworld treasure mirror should have come from the Brahma Ghost Mother. Back when Ghost Mother Brahma had awakened in the Nine Serenities abyss in the ghost world, she had taken the Netherworld mirror out of him and sent it back into his body. At that time Wu Dao's main body didn't think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, the Brahma Ghost Mother must have left a wisp of her bloodline in the underworld mirror. The Brahma Ghost Mother's goal was to use him to break the shackles of the Nine Serenities sinful land. It wasn't an accident that he was sent to the Nine Underworld sin grounds. Only by using the blood of a great emperor to activate the Netherworld treasure mirror would he be able to break through the restrictions of this world. Ka. At this moment, a cracking sound came from the sky. Wu Dao's main body looked up. Cracks began to appear around the bloody scar in the sky, and they quickly spread in all directions. Soon they covered the entire sky. The entire world was about to collapse. Countless Rakshasas below looked at this scene. Some were excited, some were happy, some were confused, and some were uneasy. They had been imprisoned here for generations. Now that they saw the cage of heaven and earth shatter, they were about to regain their freedom. Naturally they were excited. But at the same time many Rakshasas had been freed, but they didn't know where to go. Their future was uncertain. The Nine Serenities sinful land's destruction would definitely alarm the celestial tribute world. After all, they were once sinful spirits imprisoned by the celestial tribute world. Now that they had offended the celestial tribute world, where would they find a place to stay? The celestial tribute world would hunt them down everywhere. Their people in this world were full of unknowns about the 3,000 worlds. Even if they escaped from the Nine Serenities sinful land, how far could they go? Your Excellency, please save us and give us a direction. The Rakshasas kings finally looked at Wu Dao's main body and knelt down. After all, the Nine Serenities sinful land was broken by the messenger of the ghost realm. The fate of the Rakshasas in this sinful land could only be entrusted to him. Whether it was in terms of cultivation realm, combat strength, or identity as the messenger of the ghost realm, only this purple-robed man was qualified to lead them. In a sense, this messenger of the ghost realm was their 9 serenities emperor in this world. Wu Dao's main body was silent as he looked at the Rakshas's expectant gazes. Whether it was because of the 9 serenities pure maiden or the Brahma ghost mother, Wu Dao's main body wouldn't stand by and let these Rakshasas fend for themselves. Moreover, these Rakshasas had been freed from the imprisonment of the 9 serenities' sinful land. If they continued to cultivate, it was very likely that they would become quasi-emperors or even emperors in the future. If this group of Rakshasas was controlled, they would be a force that couldn't be ignored. However, it wasn't easy to settle this group of Rakshasas and get rid of the celestial tribute world's pursuit. There were hundreds of millions of Rakshasas and they were a massive race. How could they find a realm to settle them down in such a short period of time without being discovered? If Heaven Baron sect took in this group of Rakshasas, they would probably be annihilated the next day. Wu Dao's main body's gaze inadvertently swept past the stone statue of the 9 serenities pure maiden. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he thought of a place to go. Rumble. Boom. Right then heaven and earth could no longer hold on. A loud boom came from the skies and the firmament shattered into countless pieces that fell. The 9 serenities' sinful land had completely collapsed. Wu Dao's main body took out an ancient-looking immortal boat from the storage bag of the young man from before. It was the size of a palm but was extremely exquisite and had 9 floors. When one spirit consciousness probed into the immortal boat, they would discover that the interior space of the immortal boat was unimaginably huge. During the forging process of the immortal boat, not only did the Sumeru mustard seed dermic Dao technique, a world fragment of an Emperor Realm expert was also integrated. That was a huge sum of money. World fragments were things that even Emperor Realm experts yearned for. The fact that a world fragment was integrated into an immortal boat was proof of how luxurious it was. It was precisely because of this that such a rare flying treasure was created. It was no exaggeration to say that the immortal boat was like another world. Wu Dao's main body took out the immortal boat and summoned 6 streams of flames to forcefully erase the spirit consciousness imprint on it before tossing it into the air. Board the boat. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and did not say anything else. The Rakshasas were saved by Wu Dao's main body and naturally trusted him completely. One after another, they flew towards the immortal boat. At the same time, the martial soul of Wu Dao's main body established a connection with the immortal boat. Wu Dao's main body seemed to have discovered something and his mind moved. Every room on the ferry boat suddenly released a strong suction force. It was like a bottomless pit, dragging the surrounding Rakshasas. That dermic Dao technique was also the magical part of the immortal boat. Not only was it a flying treasure but it also had the ability to swallow and store things. It could even be used for battle. Under the control of Wu Dao's main body's spirit consciousness, hundreds of millions of Rakshasas turned into light spots and surged into the immortal boat like carps crossing the river. Chapter 28:35. Under the control of Wu Dao's true body, the immortal boat soon accommodated all the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld sinned ground. Then Wu Dao's true body quickly handed the immortal boat to the Wuxia king of fear and said, "Take this immortal boat and go to the Heaven Realm's demon domain that I mentioned to you before to look for the Heaven Baron sect." As he spoke, Wu Dao's true body took out a map of the 3,000 worlds and a message talisman with his divine sense imprint and handed them to the Wuxia king of fear. Wu Dao's true body kept the Wuxia king of fear by his side and gave him the word fear, so that he could protect the Heaven Baron sect in his place for a period of time in the future. "Master, where are you going?" The Wuxia king of fear could not help but ask after hearing the hidden meaning. "I have other matters to attend to," Wu Dao's true body said indifferently without further explanation. His original plan was to head to the Grand Wilderness. Moreover, the word, flame, imprint on his palm was still there and his whereabouts could be exposed at any time. They could only protect the lives of the Wuxia king of fear and the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld sin ground if they acted separately. "Master, do you need me to follow you?" Luocha asked softly as she looked at Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body shook his head slightly. Luocha was disappointed, but soon she heard Wu Dao's true body say, "Go to the Heaven Baron sect with the Wuxia king of fear. You have more important matters to attend to." Wu Dao's true body said with his divine sense, "Now that the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld sinned ground has been freed, someone needs to lead them temporarily. I'm not around, so I can only leave this to you." Firstly, Yu Luocha was a Rakshasa race member and was also born in the 9 underworld sin ground. She understood the Rakshasa race relatively well and they would not be too resistant to her. Secondly, Yu Luocha was the only one he trusted among the hundreds of millions of Rakshasa race members. The Rakshasa race was a huge force and now that they were free, someone had to keep an eye on them to prevent any trouble. Although Wu Dao's true body did not say it explicitly, Yu Luocha could hear the trust in his words. She was pleasantly surprised but also a little uneasy. She said hesitantly, "I'm afraid that I can't convince them." Wu Dao's true body took out the young man's identity token. After the young man's death, the mark on the token had already disappeared. However, this identity token was also made of an extremely rare and precious material, star crystal. Refining a star might not even produce a single grain of star crystal sand. It Tao of God is God's hands heaven star God tokens as truest God, stars sect. The martial Tao true body held the star crystal and left his spiritual sense imprint on it. At the same time, he left behind a wisp of the netherworld ghost flame Tao art. "Take this medallion with you. Use it to command the 9 underworlds Rakshasa for me." The martial Tao true body didn't conceal his voice at all. His voice spread to every corner of the immortal boat. "Seeing this token is the same as seeing me. From now on, follow Yu Luocha's arrangements." "Understood." After a brief silence in the immortal boat, the many Rakshasas responded one after another. Although some Rakshasa kings were hesitant, they did not show any dissatisfaction. Wu Dao's true body added, "If there's anything you can't solve, you can ask the Fear King for help." With the Fear King's combat strength and methods, he would be able to suppress the Rakshasas even if something happened to the Rakshasas in the 9th Hellsind land. In fact, Wu Dao's true body was overthinking. When the Rakshasas learned that Wu Dao's true body came from the ghost realm like the plain Lady Rakshasa, they were filled with respect and fear. Moreover, Wu Dao's true body had shown such terrifying combat strength and broken the 9th Hellsind land's cage, allowing everyone to regain their freedom. The Rakshasas were not disloyal to him at all. Although some Rakshasa kings were conflicted about this arrangement, they did not object out of respect for Wu Dao's true body. The Fear King could naturally tell that Wu Dao's true body trusted Yu Luocha. He grinned at Yu Luocha and nodded in a rather friendly manner. However, his ferocious face coupled with this kind of smile was more or less a little frightening. Yu Luocha hesitated for a moment before saying, "Master, there are too many of us. If we head to the Heaven Baron sect and expose our whereabouts, I'm afraid the Heaven Baron sect will be destroyed." Although it was safe to hide in the immortal boat, how was it different from being trapped in the 9th Hellsind land all year round? Moreover, although the immortal boat was a realm of its own, there was no heaven-earth essence energy. The Rakshasas were unable to cultivate and every day felt like a year. However, once they left the immortal boat, the situation that Yu Luocha was worried about might happen. It would not be long before today's matter spread throughout the upper realm. Once their whereabouts were exposed, who could resist the pursuit of the Heaven Venerate world? Wu Dao's true body shook his head gently. The Heaven Venerate world is not your final destination. After you reach the Heaven Baron sect in the Heaven Baron sect, go and meet another of the 7 emotions fiend generals. She's the pure maiden of the fiend sects of Tianhuang mainland and is from the same generation as us. You should recognize her. Pure maiden of the fiend sects. Yu Luocha recalled and murmured softly, "Ji Yaoyan?" Wu Dao's true body nodded. "She knows of a mysterious place. You guys might be able to settle down there." When Wu Dao's true body reunited with Demoness Ji in the fiend region, she mentioned something to him. She said that she obtained the inheritance of an ancient emperor in a mysterious place. That emperor was the 9 Nether Pure Maiden. The place where the emperor left behind his Tao legacy was definitely extremely secretive and difficult to discover. If it was anyone else they might not be able to enter. However, the ancestor of Yu Luocha's group was the 9 Nether Pure Maiden. Wu Dao's true body guessed that the mysterious place would not reject Yu Luocha's group. That mysterious place was the escape route for Yu Luocha's group. This world was about to shatter. The experts of the celestial tribute world could arrive at any moment. In fact, an even greater threat might descend and they could not afford to delay. "Let's go." After instructing them, Wu Dao's true body bade farewell to the Fear Yaksha king and Yu Luocha and left separately. Yu Luocha entered the immortal vessel as well. The Fear Yaksha king put away the immortal vessel and nodded to Wu Dao's true body. Casually he tore through the void and vanished into it. Wu Dao's true body had a burning gaze and looked at the place where the Fear Yaksha king vanished for a while. He was relieved when he did not discover any traces. If it was an ordinary king, Wu Dao's true body would indeed be worried that he would not be able to escape the pursuit of the celestial tribute world. However, the Void Yiksha race's perception of the void far surpassed that of other races. Void Yikshas were the best at long-distance teleportation and traversing through spatial tunnels. Furthermore, they were stealthy and did not leave any traces. Wu Dao's true body looked down at the mark in his palm with a grim expression. He was not out of danger yet. Furthermore, the flame mark was getting hotter. Chapter 28:36. Behind this yen symbol, there might be the even more mysterious heavenly court. The pursuit of the heavenly court would be even more troublesome and dangerous than the pursuit of the celestial world. Wu Dao's main body didn't dare to be careless. He tore through the void and entered the spatial tunnel, preparing to hide in the Avicii hell and observe the situation. Wu Dao's main body continued to travel through the spatial tunnel. This place was too far away from the celestial world. Even if he tore through the void and traveled through the spatial tunnel, Wu Dao's main body would still need a few days. Half a day later. Wu Dao's main body, who was traveling through the spatial tunnel, suddenly paused. His spiritual perception alerted him, and a sense of impending doom surged into his heart. Without much time to think, Wu Dao's main body brought out the prison-suppressing cauldron and placed it above his head. Boom! Just as he finished this action, the spatial tunnel exploded with a huge tremor. Immediately after, a huge hand broke through the layers of stars and descended from the sky, cutting off his path of retreat and knocking him out of the spatial tunnel. The power of this palm was too strong. If not for the prison-suppressing cauldron blocking in front of him, which neutralized most of the killing intent, Wu Dao's main body would have been destroyed in body and soul with no corpse left. Even so, Wu Dao's main body was beaten until he coughed out blood, his face pale. The arch-expert, you dare to escape after killing someone from the heavenly court? An incomparably majestic and murderous voice reverberated in the starry sky. It was indeed someone from the heavenly court. The heavenly court's pursuit had arrived, not giving Wu Dao's main body a chance to return to the Avicii hell at all. Before Wu Dao's main body had time to think, the huge hand had already slammed down a second time, carrying with it a monstrous pressure that caused countless stars to explode and the starry sky to tremble. Whoosh! Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath, and the blood in his body surged. He pushed his bloodline to the extreme, and his entire body turned into a red-hot heaven and earth furnace, almost bursting through the entire starry sky. 6 flames burned fiercely like 6 fire dragons, circling above the heaven and earth furnace, incinerating the heavens and boiling the seas. At the same time, Wu Dao's main body released Wu Dao's purgatory. Wu Dao's bloodline phenomenon and domain erupted at the same time. Carrying the suppressing hell cauldron, Wu Dao's true body rose into the air. Umph! In the starry sky above the firmament, a figure appeared faintly, its entire body burning with scorching red flames. This celestial emperor's face was shrouded in flames, making it hard to see his face clearly. One could only see 2 torch-like gazes shooting out from his eyes, landing on Wu Dao's original body. Firefly's light. The celestial court's emperor sneered. He didn't stop attacking. He didn't even show any signs of changing his moves. However, a world seemed to have appeared on his palm, suppressing all living things. Bang! As the sky-covering palm descended, it collided with Wu Dao's heaven and earth smelt, Wu Dao's purgatory and hell-suppressing cauldron. In an instant the world seemed to come to a standstill. Ka-ka-ka. Immediately after, cracks appeared on Wu Dao's purgatory and it instantly shattered. The heaven and earth smelt was also smashed into pieces. Wu Dao's original body reappeared, and his blood dyed the starry sky red. Even the hell-suppressing cauldron fell to the side. The 4 holy spirits on the cauldron were suppressed to the point that they couldn't awaken and dimmed. Wu Dao's original body panted heavily. This palm strike had almost ended his life. This celestial court's emperor was probably a top expert among celestial emperors. Wu Dao's original body held the soul lamp in his left hand and the netherworld mirror in his right. These were the 2 most powerful treasures he had. However, the soul lamp was extremely harmful to the essence soul. Since the other party had the protection of his physical body, the soul lamp was almost unable to threaten him. As for the netherworld mirror, the bloodline left behind by the Brahma ghost mother had been exhausted when they broke through the 9 underworld's sinful land. At this moment, even if he devoured the bloodline of Wu Dao's original body and released the netherworld eye, he probably wouldn't be able to threaten this celestial court's emperor. Since stepping into the martial domain realm, This was the first time Wu Dao's original body had suffered such a serious injury. The difference between the two sides was too great. Even Wu Dao's original body couldn't make up for it with the help of 3 peerless treasures. At this moment, a snow-white pheasant appeared in Wu Dao's line of sight. It had a long tail and was lying in the distant starry sky. The appearance of this white pheasant was extremely strange. Standing in the distance, it was incompatible with the surrounding starry sky. Wu Dao's original body had never sensed when this white pheasant appeared or where it came from. It was as if it had suddenly appeared there. There were no aura fluctuations on this white pheasant's body. It didn't seem to have any cultivation and was just an ordinary white pheasant. However, the severely injured Wu Dao's original body did not notice that the Celestial Court's Emperor seemed to have thought of something when he saw this white pheasant, and his expression changed drastically. Wu Dao's original body was already on the verge of death. However, for some reason he couldn't control himself and wanted to look at the white pheasant subconsciously. The white pheasant was snow-white and only its eyes were pitch black. The eyes of Wu Dao's original body met the eyes of the white pheasant. The white pheasant's pitch-black eyes swiveled. Boom. The mind of Wu Dao's original body suddenly went blank and he lost consciousness. At the same time, Sword Realm Burial Sword Peak. Su Zimo, who was in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes and shot up. His eyes flickered and his expression was solemn. He naturally sensed what Wu Dao's original body experienced just now. However, he had lost contact with Wu Dao's original body just now. No matter how he tried to call out, he could not sense the existence of Wu Dao's original body. It was as though Wu Dao's true body had disappeared into thin air from this world. Su Zimo was deep in thought. He had experienced this feeling once and was not unfamiliar with it. Back then, when Wu Dao's original body fell from the Avicii Hell into Hell, the connection between the two true bodies was completely severed. What happened just now was exactly the same. How could this be? Could it be that Wu Dao's original body left the upper realm again and headed to a parallel world similar to Hell? However, why were there no signs at all? The last time he fell into Hell, it was because the Tomb Keeper pushed him into a dry well. What happened just now? Su Zimo did not dare to act rashly. He was only a Kongming perfected immortal at the moment. If he headed to the location of the incident rashly, he would probably bring huge trouble to Qinglian's true body. After all, there was an emperor of the heavenly courts there. White pheasant. Su Zimo muttered softly. Could all of this be related to the white pheasant that suddenly appeared in the starry sky? Su Zimo immediately set off and headed to the main hall of the 10,000 Swords Palace where the ancient books were stored. He wanted to find some clues. A day later, he finally saw a description of the white pheasant in an ancient book that recorded the All-Heaven era. Meeting a white pheasant on the road is an ominous sign. There was only this simple sentence and there was no other explanation. Su Zimo asked the emperors of the 10,000 Swords Palace about encountering a white pheasant on the road but did not get an answer. Chapter 2837. Just as Su Zimo was at a loss, his heart skipped a beat. Su Zimo was surprised. He had sensed the existence of Wu Dao's main body once more. However, Wu Dao's main body was in a strange state. He seemed to be in a daze and had yet to wake up. Su Zimo tried to call out to Wu Dao's main body several times before he slowly woke up. In the endless starry sky, Wu Dao's main body stood motionless. Although he had regained consciousness and sensed the existence of Qinglian's main body, his expression was still a little blank under the Mo Luo mask, as if he was trying hard to recall something. Just now, he was chased by an emperor of the heavenly courts and saw a white pheasant. For some reason he seemed to have entered an unfamiliar world. Wu Dao's main body tried hard to recall everything he had experienced in that world. For some reason he could not recall most of the situations in that experience no matter how hard he tried. He could only vaguely recall some fragments intermittently. It was a terrifying world that he had never seen before. In that world, black and white were inverted. The people living there could not tell right from wrong, were apathetic and were cold and heartless. Wu Dao's main body lost all his strength in that world and became immortal once more. There seemed to be an invisible power there that prevented anyone from cultivating. It was the same for him. That place was filled with lies. Every person who spoke the truth would face immense danger and endure countless attacks, curses, and bites before they were drowned in the vast crowd. That place was filled with cruelty and violence. Every kind person lived carefully as if they were walking on thin ice. If they accidentally showed their kindness, they would be surrounded and attacked by villains. That place was filled with darkness and ugliness. There was no warmth or beauty. There was no justice and evil ran amok there. He saw people in trouble and tried to help, but he was dragged into the abyss instead. He saw a group of weak people bound by chains, kneeling on the ground and being whipped and enslaved. He wanted to step forward and undo their shackles. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped forward, those people's originally apathetic faces suddenly turned ferocious and their eyes glowed red. Their seemingly weak bodies suddenly erupted with immense strength as they pressed him to the ground and broke his knees. They shouted angrily, "We're all kneeling, why are you standing?" Wu Dao's main body did not fit in here. He struggled to survive in this world, running into walls everywhere and covered in wounds, but he never gave up. He vaguely remembered that he had saved a homeless little girl named Wuxia who had been wandering around the world. In that world he had saved many people, but she was the only one who did not harm him in the end. He and the little girl depended on each other for survival. They seemed to have lived together for a very, very long time, until he finally grew old. He could not cultivate and had a lifespan of 100 years. In his memory, when his hair was white and he had one foot in the grave, that little girl seemed to still be by his side. He didn't know if there was something wrong with his memory or if there was some other reason. In his mind, the little girl had never grown up. Or rather, she had never changed. She was still the same as when they first met. She was thin and skinny, wearing a worn-out shirt that was washed white. In his 100 years of life, he had done many things that did not fit in with that world. Even though he had paid a huge price, but when he grew old he was magnanimous and had a clear conscience. Every time he saved someone, the girl would watch silently from the side. She did not help, nor did she stop him. She was completely uninvolved. The two of them would occasionally have some conversations. One day, Wuxia said, "If someone is in trouble, isn't it good to just stand by and watch?" Wu Dao's main body was silent for a long time before he said, "If I stand by and watch when I'm in trouble, don't expect anyone to help me. I'm saving people, but I'm also saving myself." Wuxia clapped her hands and laughed. "This is a very simple principle, but unfortunately they don't understand." Another day, Wuxia suddenly asked, "Do you think they are people? If they are, why do they have no humanity?" Wu Dao's main body was silent. Wuxia continued, "When they see others in trouble, they will either laugh or hit them when they are down, or they will choose to remain silent. Why don't they understand that one day they will also have to bear this pain? They will always have a fluke mentality thinking that they can escape. But karma, the cycle of heaven, who can escape?" Wuxia said to herself at the side. After an unknown period of time, Wuxia suddenly said hatefully, "They are a group of beasts." In the boundless starry sky, Wu Dao's main body suddenly felt a headache, his body swaying slightly. He took a deep breath, stopped thinking and gradually calmed down. He found out from Qinglian's main body that only a day had passed since he entered that world. And in that world he had spent 100 years, lived a lifetime. This difference in time made him feel a little lost. The 100 years of life in that world was like a bizarre and absurd dream that seemed both real and illusory. Wu Dao's main body looked around. His position had not changed. It was as if he had never left this place. However, the Heavenly Court's emperor who was chasing after him had disappeared. Wu Dao's main body thought carefully. In that world, he seemed to have seen the figure of the Heavenly Court's emperor in a crowd. However, the Heavenly Court's emperor was the same as him, a mortal. As for the rest, Wu Dao's main body could no longer remember. Nothing around him had changed. Wu Dao's main body clenched his fists slightly and murmured, "Could it really be just a dream?" At this moment, he suddenly felt as if there was something strange in his palm. Only when he clenched his fist did he realize it. Wu Dao's main body looked down. Unknowingly, a white jade pendant had appeared in his palm. This seemed to be Wuxia's. Looking at this jade pendant, he vaguely remembered some things about Wuxia. To be precise, this jade pendant was the last gift Wuxia's father had left her. Wuxia's father had passed away early and she did not have any clear memories of him. The only memory she had was this jade pendant that her father had left her. Wuxia valued this jade pendant very much and always wore it close to her body. When the two of them first met, Wuxia was severely injured and did not seem to have much time left. She asked Wu Dao's main body to bring her to see her mother. Wuxia had originally planned to give the jade pendant to her mother and tell her that her daughter was seriously injured and might not make it. If she died, she could sell the jade pendant and get some money to help her bury her daughter. There would still be a lot left. Unexpectedly, just as Wuxia opened her mouth and said that her daughter was sick, her mother's face was full of disdain and she kept waving her hand to interrupt her. I don't have money to treat your injuries. Sickly person, leave quickly, don't die here." How can there be such a heartless mother in this world? Wu Dao's main body was furious. Looking at the sickly Assier in his arms, he felt a wave of heartache. He carried Assier and turned to leave, saying loudly to Assier, "Don't worry, no matter if you die or live in the future, I will accompany you." End of chapter. Chapter 28:38. Wu Dao's original body did not remember when Assier gave him this jade pendant. But if not for this jade pendant, he would really think that he had just had a ridiculous dream. Wu Dao's original body had no clue about this matter. He observed this white jade pendant repeatedly for a long time, but he could not see anything special about it. It seemed to be an ordinary jade pendant. Wu Dao's original body pondered for a long time, but still put the white jade pendant away. Only at this moment did he suddenly realize that the yen character brand that was originally on his palm had already vanished. Even the injuries in his body had long been healed. Wu Dao's original body carefully felt his body, but there was nothing wrong with it. The Heavenly Court's emperor who was chasing him had disappeared, and he did not know whether he was dead or alive. It was too strange. It was as if he had just had a dream. After experiencing 100 years of life, all the dangers and hidden dangers had disappeared. This experience was too bizarre. There were many strange and illogical things that he could not understand. In the boundless and deep starry sky, the vast Milky Way flowed quietly under his feet. The surroundings were empty and quiet. Wu Dao's original body took a deep breath and temporarily put this unforgettable experience aside. He stepped on the waves and quickly disappeared. The shattering of the 9 underworld sinful land, one of the 10 great sinful lands, was like a huge rock falling into a lake. In the originally turbulent 3,000 worlds, huge waves were stirred up again. Behind the 10 great sinful lands was the most mysterious force in the upper world, the celestial tribute world. Since ancient times, several eras had passed. Countless worlds and races were drowned in the long river of time. Only the celestial tribute world stood tall. And now, the 9 underworld sinful land was broken. What did it mean? This meant that the celestial tribute world, a colossus, had encountered a direct challenge in this life. Moreover, this challenge came so suddenly and so fiercely. It directly shattered one of the 10 great sinful lands and released hundreds of millions of Rakshasa sinful spirits. Have you heard? One of the 10 great sinful lands has been shattered. It said that hundreds of millions of Rakshasa sinful spirits escaped, as if they disappeared into thin air. Don't worry. The celestial tribute world has already issued a bounty for the evil spirits. Although the 3,000 worlds are large, there is definitely nowhere to hide with such a large number of Rakshasa sinful spirits. That's right. Which realm in the 3,000 realms would dare to take in a Rakshasa sinful spirit? This is equivalent to openly making an enemy of the celestial tribute world. That might not be the case. Wouldn't the one who broke the 9 serenities sinned land be the enemy of the celestial tribute world? Speaking of which, exactly who made a move and shattered the 9th hell sinful grounds? I heard that the celestial tribute world lost quite a few people? I'm not sure. I reckon that person has already been destroyed by the celestial tribute realm. How could he have escaped after causing such a huge commotion? It can't be that there's really a great change in the world and a calamity is coming, right? This matter spread further and further through the 3,000 realms, continuously fermenting. It caused a great commotion and at the same time, all sorts of rumors spread. Some people said that it was a hidden and mysterious force that was challenging the celestial tribute world. There were also some who said that the sinful spirit lineage had risen from the ashes. There were also people who said that it might be the return of the Devil Lord, Sword World, buried Sword Peak. In the Peak Master's cave abode, a black-haired, green-robed cultivator sat cross-legged on the bed with a jade-green sword on his knees. He was resting with his eyes closed. Su Zimo had naturally heard of the rumors in the outside world. However, apart from the Rakshasa race in the 9th hell sinful grounds, no one else knew what happened. Nobody knew about the existence of Wu Dao's main body. Su Zimo did not take those rumors to heart. To him there were more important things. After he entered the Kongming stage, the celestial tribute world's 1,000-year limit had passed and he could enter the celestial tribute world again. However, once he entered the celestial tribute world, he might face a huge crisis. This crisis did not only come from the revenge of the Heavenly Eye race. Su Zimo did not move the entire time because he was waiting for a suitable opportunity. And now the time was ripe. Su Zimo extended 2 fingers and landed on the Qingping sword. He stroked it gently and stopped at the tip before flicking it. Buzz. The body of the sword trembled slightly, emitting a clear and melodious sword hum. causing ripples to appear in the surroundings like ripples on water. As though it could sense its master's heart, the Qingping sword emitted a murderous battle intent. At the same time, Su Zimo opened his eyes suddenly and his gaze was like lightning. Su Zimo put away the Qingping sword and stood up, prepared to enter the celestial tribute world again. Right then, as though she heard an unusual sword hum from the cave abode, Kitsune knocked gently on the door and entered after receiving Su Zimo's permission. It had been 1,000 years since he returned from the celestial tribute world. That was because during this period of time, Su Zimo comprehended 3 supreme divine powers and a forbidden secret skill. The power of the divine powers cleansed his body, bloodline and essence spirit. Coupled with the massive amount of cultivation resources, he was able to break through and enter the Kongming stage. As for Kitsune's cultivation realm, there were no changes and she was still at lesser mastery of the true martial realm. Su Zimo was not worried about Kitsune's cultivation. She still had 2 supreme divine powers of the sword Dao that she had yet to comprehend. Once she comprehended them, she would be greatly improved. "Master, did something happen?" Kitsune asked. "Nothing." Su Zimo said casually, "I'm preparing to enter the celestial tribute world again." Kitsune was stunned. Soon, Kitsune reacted and said, "There's indeed a new situation at the celestial tribute world." It said that because the 9 Serenities Sinned land was broken, the people of the celestial tribute world were enraged. In order to punish the remaining sin spirits of the 9 Serenities Sinned land, they threw all the sin spirits of the 9 Serenities Sinned land into the evil demon battlefield. Su Zimo frowned. Kitsune continued, "Furthermore, the celestial tribute world announced that the restriction of entering the celestial tribute world every 1,000 years has been lifted. Now all the beings of the various worlds and races can enter the celestial tribute world at any time." Su Zimo guessed the celestial tribute world's intentions. Once the restriction was lifted, the top true martial experts of the 3,000 worlds could flood into the celestial tribute world in a short time. At that time, an incomparably bloody feast of slaughter would unfold in the evil demon battlefield. It would be a hunt for the sin spirits of the 3,000 worlds. This was the celestial tribute world's punishment for the 9 Serenities Sinned land. All right. Su Zimo's expression was normal. It would be a pity to miss such a rare event. The celestial tribute world situation would not affect him. He was determined to go to the celestial tribute world for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to obtain some battle merits and exchange them for more precious treasures in the treasure tower to aid his cultivation. Killing sin spirits was not the only way to obtain battle merits. Second, and also the most important reason for this trip, it was to get rid of the hidden danger. If he didn't show himself and remained hidden in the sword world, this danger would never be exposed. Instead, it would become a huge problem for him. Chapter 2839. Seeing that Su Zimo was determined to leave, Kitsune hesitated and hesitated. "Is there anything else?" Su Zimo asked. Kitsune said, "Master, if you want to head to the celestial tribute world, I'm afraid the other peak masters won't agree. I heard that senior sister Lin also wanted to head over after hearing that the restrictions were lifted in the celestial tribute world. However, she was stopped by the peak master of Ultimate Sword Peak." Under Su Zimo's guidance, Lin Xuanjin comprehended the immortal slaying sword and her strength increased greatly. In the sword world, it was not good to release supreme abilities when sparring with fellow sect members as they would be restrained. Now that she had encountered such a rare opportunity, she naturally did not want to miss it and wanted to enter the fiend battlefield to test her sword and fight. Su Zimo did not mind and smiled. "I'm the peak master of Burial Sword Peak after all. I'm on the same level as the other peak masters. Taoist Yulan can stop Lin Xuanjin, but she can't stop me." Even so, the news of him preparing to head to the celestial tribute world caused a huge commotion in the sword world as soon as it spread. The 8 peak masters of the sword world came together. All of them had solemn expressions as though they were facing a great enemy. They blocked Su Zimo in his cave abode, as though they were afraid that Su Zimo would slip away. "Brother Su, this is not a joke. Now that the restrictions are lifted in the celestial tribute world, the top true spirits of the 3,000 worlds will definitely gather in the celestial tribute world in a short period of time. If you head to the celestial tribute world now, the Heavenly Eye race will definitely seek revenge on you and Xiayin might appear as well. It's not just the Heavenly Eye race. The Stone race is on bad terms with our sword world. It was lucky that we did not meet them previously. Now that there are no restrictions, the monsters of the Stone race will also appear in the celestial tribute world. A fierce battle is inevitable then. The 8 peak masters spoke one after another, earnestly and sincerely. Everyone, don't be nervous. Su Zimo chuckled and spread his hands. A battle is inevitable. Let's fight then. It's hard to say who will win and who will lose. His words were, of course, a humble way of speaking. When he was in the celestial being stage, he could kill 10 true spirits of the Heavenly Eye clan, including a supreme true spirit. Now that he had stepped into the Kongming stage, Su Zimo was able to control as many as 5 kinds of supernatural powers. The so-called geniuses of the true spirit realm were nothing in his eyes. Seeing Su Zimo speak so casually, the 8 peak masters became even more worried. Brother Su, if you reach the 4th layer of the true self realm, the Dongshu stage, then I won't stop you. Now that you're at the Kongming stage, I'm afraid you won't stand a chance against Xia Yin. Xia Yin was born with the yin-yang eyes and he has learned 2 supreme skills. One of them is the 6 paths reincarnation. Do not underestimate him. Moreover, with so many peak true spirit realm experts gathered in the demonic battlefield, there are too many variables. Anything can happen in the demonic battlefield. That's right, the true spirit realm experts of the 3,000 worlds have gathered. There are too many things that cannot be controlled. In the evil demon battlefield, there might be a huge chaotic battle. At the end of the day, the 8 peak masters still didn't agree with Su Zimo going to the celestial tribute world. Lu Yun, the sword slayer peak master, said in a low voice, the current period is too sensitive. Such a big thing just happened in the celestial tribute world, who knows what else will happen. If the faction that broke the Hadal Sin grounds suddenly appears and erupts in a huge battle with the celestial tribute world, we will definitely be involved. That won't happen, Su Zimo murmured softly. The 8 peak masters were all doing this out of good intentions, so Su Zimo could only patiently explain, fellow Taoists, you can rest assured. With my methods, even if I can't defeat an expert of the same level, I can still protect myself. There are some treasures in the treasure pagoda that can aid my cultivation. With the help of these treasures, I can step into the Dongshu stage as quickly as possible. Seeing that Su Zimo had made up his mind, the 8 peak masters looked at each other and discussed a bit. Just now Lu Yun said, if Brother Su insists on going, we naturally can't stop you. However, we must report this matter to the 3 great emperors of the sword world and ask them to make a decision. Su Zimo was a bit exasperated. There's no need to mobilize so many people, is there? Lu Yun said, Brother Su, just now you say that you can protect yourself against opponents of the same level, but we're not just worried about your peers. Oh. Su Zimo raised an eyebrow slightly. In the upper world, especially between great worlds, battles between peers were tacitly agreed not to interfere. Life and death depended on one's own ability. If one side bullied the weak, it would easily lead to a huge battle between the 2 sides and the situation would spiral out of control. Yulan said, you killed Xiang Meng and the others in the celestial bestowment world. With the vengeful nature of the Celestial Eye clan, they won't let the matter rest. If Xia Yin really can't do anything to you in the fiend battlefield, it's not impossible for the Celestial Eye clan's kings to kill you. Chan Sword Peak Master said, once immortal kings fight, the shockwaves will be too great to control. It'll be difficult for us to protect you in the chaos. Su Zimo suddenly said, if that really happens, don't worry about me, fellow Taoist. What are you saying, Brother Su? Lu Yun interrupted with a frown. Although there are 9 great sword peaks in the sword world, sword cultivators of the same sect are like family. How can we not care about each other? Seeing how agitated the governor was, Su Zimo couldn't say anything else. He could only head to the Myriad Swords Palace with the 8 peak masters and ask the 3 great emperors of the sword world to make a decision. The 3 great emperors were old and had white hair. Su Zimo had seen one of them before. It was the old man with the iron crown. As for the other 2, one was fat and one was skinny. They looked at Su Zimo with a hint of approval and kindness in their eyes. The fat old man and the skinny old man exchanged glances with each other after hearing the 8 peak masters talk about this matter. Both of them remained silent. They'd lived for too long. If the 8 peak masters could think of the dangers, so could the 2 of them. The old man with the iron crown arched an eyebrow and slowly rose to his feet, exuding a fierce sword aura. What, is our sword world afraid of the Celestial Eye clan? If we sword cultivators cower in fear in the face of powerful enemies, what's the point of cultivating the sword Tao? The fat and thin old men nodded in agreement. The old man waved a hand and sent a message talisman imprinted with countless sword scars to the young man. Take this communication talisman. If something unexpected really happens that none of you can deal with, then tear it apart and I'll know." The old man sneered. "I'd like to see who dares break the balance and kill a peak master of the sword world as an immortal king." Hearing this, the 8 peak leaders were finally relieved and their faces were filled with joy. With the old man's words, they could escort Su Zimo to the celestial tribute world without worry. No matter what happened in the celestial tribute world, they could deal with it. However, on the other side, Su Zimo fell silent with resignation. If he really did provoke the great emperors of the sword world, the hidden danger wouldn't be exposed. Instead, it would continue to hide and wait for another opportunity. If that was the case, all his plans would go down the drain. Chapter 2840. But on second thought, Su Zimo quickly realized that this wasn't necessarily the case. Given that person's scheming methods, he might have some other tricks up his sleeve. He'd even suppressed the hostility and killing intent in his heart for the sake of planning this. Although the Yin-Yang talisman scripture could shield him from the heavenly mysteries, too much thought would inevitably leave traces behind. Su Zimo gradually reined in his thoughts and emptied his mind. The 8 peak lords were greatly reassured after receiving the old man's message talisman. "In that case, our trip to the celestial bestowment world should be worry-free," Lu Yun said. "It's hard to say." Zen Sword Peak's lord was more cautious. "Don't forget that we can't interfere no matter what happens on the battlefield. Even the great emperors can't interfere." Yulan, the peak master of the ultimate sword peak, said, "Let Lin Xuanjin go with Brother Su. She has comprehended the immortal killing sword, and now her fighting strength has increased greatly. If they join hands, they can take care of each other in the demonic battlefield." "That would be best." The other peak lords nodded in agreement. Mirage Sword Peak's Lord Feng Su smiled. "Actually, we don't need to be too nervous. After all, we have the Fengtian medallion. Brother Su and Lin Xuanjin can immediately withdraw from the battlefield if the situation doesn't look right. That being said, no one could guarantee what would happen when the time came. Last time, Lin Xuanjin had been frozen in place by Xiang Meng's spacetime imprisonment. His medallion had been stolen and he'd almost died. Although Xiang Meng's group had the medallion, they'd all been killed by Su Zimo with a single slash of his sword. Everyone returned to their respective residences and gathered at the Myriad Swords Palace. The 8 peak lords led the group to the celestial bestowment world. Apart from Su Zimo and Lin Xuanjin, there were also a few perfected immortals from the various sword peaks accompanying them on this trip to the heaven bestowment world. For example, Kitsune of Sword Burial Peak and Yun Ting of Extreme Sword Peak. Because he'd been in seclusion last time, he hadn't been able to witness the great battle on the battlefield. Naturally, he wouldn't miss it this time. Wang Dong Gong Sunyu, and the other first true immortals of the various sword peaks went as well. However, after some discussion among the peak leaders, they decided that Kitsune, Yun Ting, Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others were only allowed to go to the celestial tribute world to observe the battle. They were not allowed to enter the fiend battlefield. This time, the restrictions of the celestial tribute world had been lifted. The geniuses of the evil demon battlefield had gathered there. Monsters ran amok, and there were also the 10 great evil demons. The number of evil demons and sinful spirits inside had skyrocketed. No one knew what kind of danger would occur. Apart from Su Zimo and Lin Xuanjin, it was too risky for anyone else to enter rashly. Sky Vision World. Many members of the Heavenly Eye race were rushing over from all directions, heading towards the center of the Heavenly Eye world. The void there had deeply caved in. From afar, it looked like a giant eye that stretched across the starry sky, surveying the surroundings. This was an important place in the Heaven's Eye world. Only those of the Heavenly Eye race at the True Spirit realm and above had the right to enter. After entering this entrance, there was a completely different world inside. At that moment, many kings of the Sky Eye clan had gathered in the Sky Eye Palace, including the Cold Eye King. Below the palace, more and more true spirits of the Sky Eye clan had gathered. Among these true spirits of the Sky Eye clan, a man with his eyes closed stood at the front. His robes were rather unique. Black and white were separated in the middle, each occupying half of the robes. When all the true spirits of the Sky Eye clan arrived, they would subconsciously stand behind this man with a respectful expression, not daring to overtake him. Although this man in the black and white robes was only a true spirit realm, his aura was not weak at all in front of the kings in the palace. I'm sure everyone has heard. Seeing that most of his clansmen had arrived, the Cold Eye King spoke slowly. The restrictions of the celestial tribute world have been lifted. In the evil demon battlefield, the number of evil demons and sinful spirits has skyrocketed, making it easier to obtain battle merits. The true spirits of the 3,000 worlds have swarmed here. Our clan has always been rather powerful in the evil demon battlefield. On the battle merit Jade Tablet, there are 2 true spirits. Speaking of this, the Cold Eye King paused slightly. His face darkened as he said coldly, however, 1,000 years ago, one of them died at the hands of the Sword World's 9th Sword Peak Master. This matter had long been spread in the upper world. Everyone in the Sky Eye clan knew about it. Revenge. An eye for an eye. The Sky Eye clan's true spirits were all riled up. The Cold Eye King nodded. That's right. If anyone from the Sword World dares to enter the evil demon battlefield again, we will definitely make them pay. At this moment, the leading man in the black and white robes suddenly opened his eyes. His left eye was pitch black while his right eye was pure white. Just by simply opening his eyes, the surrounding void trembled slightly, and a trace of unusual energy fluctuation appeared. Don't worry. The man said faintly. Leave that peak master to me. The Cold Eye King said, Xiaoyin, I'm naturally not worried about your battle strength, but don't be careless. That Su Zhu killed Xiang Meng and the others. He definitely has some tricks up his sleeve. Ah, Xiaoyin smiled. I do hope that he has some tricks up his sleeve. It would be best if he's worth me using the 6 paths of reincarnation. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood mark on Xiaoyin's forehead opened slightly, revealing a terrifying aura. The Sky Eye clan's true spirits behind him trembled and subconsciously took half a step back. Around this time, almost all the 3,000 worlds received news about the celestial tribute world. Countless prodigies and peerless true spirits appeared one after another. Everyone realized that all the living beings of the various worlds and races would gather at the evil demon battlefield. There would be a feast of slaughter. While killing evil demons and sinful spirits to obtain battle merits, it was also a good opportunity to spar with other prodigies on the battlefield. This would be an unprecedented clash of the 3,000 worlds. It would be an unprecedented event. Heaven World. Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. One of the 4 major immortal sects, the Flying Immortal Sect. In a pavilion surrounded by lush green mountains and clear waters, a woman in a plain blue palace dress sat there. Her hair was tied up in a flying immortal bun, and her face was covered with a veil. A guqin was placed on the table in front of the woman. Green smoke rose from the incense burner next to her. The woman's figure was shrouded in clouds and she looked ethereal. Clang clang clang. The woman plucked the strings of the guqin. Although her technique was brilliant, there seemed to be a trace of resentment, unwillingness, and sadness in the music. There was no artistic conception at all. I didn't expect the world-renowned guqin fairy to be able to play such a terrible tune. Right at this moment, a man walked over from afar. Before he even got close, he spoke in a loud voice. The woman in the pavilion was one of the original 4 fairies, Guqin fairy Meng Yao. Meng Yao raised her head and glanced at the man. She ignored him and continued playing the guqin. The man carried a long sword on his back. His face was slightly pale and he seemed to be injured. A gentle breeze blew past, and the man's empty sleeve fluttered. Seeing that Meng Yao did not react, the one-armed man could not help but laugh. Taoist Meng Yao, your state of mind is already in a mess. Why force yourself? After the battle at Jianghu mountain range, the world only knows about the Guqin demon. Who knows about the Guqin fairy? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.